Scooby-Dooby-Doo.
Hell yeah. That's what I was thinking all week.
I just like it when he says it. One of my favorite parts of the movie. I think it's good. Yeah.
Hello and welcome back to the Uncultured Pop Culture podcast. I am your host, Brandon, and with me, as always, is your co-host,
David.
We're back in business. This is part 2 of the 2025 Year in Review mini-series that we're doing over last week and this week because we have a lot to cover.
Exactly.
We just told you about 9 out of our top 10 movies and albums. And now this week, we're going to tell you about that last coveted number 1 spot overall. And I have to say, I think these are both very worthy choices for our number 1 spot this year.
I agree very much, in fact. And I know that you are so happy at my pick for number 1, considering that you don't have to rewatch Friendship now.
Oh, absolutely. I've been thanking Rian Johnson this entire week. But before we talk about those, we have to ask our eternal question. David, what did you watch in this past week?
Before I talk about what I watched, I wanted to bring something up because at the time that we are recording this episode, the news about the death of Rob Reiner came out last night. Obviously, I want to bring this up because I think he was a wonderful director and a wonderful person from all accounts. But also the movie I watched is actually tied to him because after hearing the horrible news, I decided to watch Spinal Tap 2, which came out this year, kind of in honor of him. And I'm really happy to report that it was really good. It's a 4 out of 5. It's just as funny as the second one, as the first one. And it was very sad seeing him on screen because just like the first one, he appears as a character in the film. And I think that, considering his very, very, very sad death and the way he died, I'm happy that at least he got to, end his career with a good film. May he rest in peace.
That was absolutely insane, that news. I could not believe my eyes when I saw that. I mean, we both got the text message in our group chat at the same time.
And it kept on getting worse and worse.
Devastating. Yeah, I mean, I think we've talked about The Princess Bride on here, but that's one of my favorite films of all time. Shout out William Goldman as well.
Oh, absolutely. Also movies like, Stand By Me. He directed so many classics.
Yeah, When Harry Met Sally.
When Harry Met Sally, exactly. I think it's one thing when you lose someone like that to, natural causes, old age, stuff like that. But when they die a death that wasn't natural, I think it just makes it so much more sad, especially considering what an amazing person he was by all accounts. So yeah, may he rest in peace, and also may his wife rest in peace too. But with that, on a lighter note, hopefully, what have you been listening to, Brandon?
Well, I've been listening to an unpronounceable EP the past week. It is one emoji. It's not even technically an emoji. It's a heart symbol that's hollow. So I don't know what to call this. Heart, I guess, by Jane Remover, who we actually just talked about last week. And of course, she surprise dropped an EP to end the year. And God, I gotta say, really good. It's on my list for next year already.
That makes me happy to hear.
But one song in specific I have been listening to on repeat. It's called Music Baby. It's 5.5 minutes long. It's Jersey Club, but it's sad, which is insane because Jersey Club is like twerking music. So yeah, it's just a beautiful song. There's just some artists that can do the most insane things with the music that they create, and she's one of them. I really have no idea. I did not know what to expect with that. But this EP was originally kind of intended to be an album, a more pop-leaning album, and then it ended up only being an EP that was surprise released because the fans were begging for it. And I got to report, it is very good. So, big fan of that and highly recommend And maybe we'll listen to it again for next year.
I'm happy that releasing it ended up making the year end up in a positive way. Because I do feel like it's always a gamble if you release something like that. So I'm happy that it paid off.
No, absolutely. This is what I've wanted from artists for a long time. This is what I've thought about doing too, is just end of the year as like a Christmas present, a thank you to the fans of just putting out something that you probably wouldn't have and just seeing what happens, because there's no stakes in December. No one cares at this point. The year-end lists have already been done. So you just kind of get to do whatever. And I like that. And I'm enjoying seeing that at least one other artist is taking that approach. So big fan of that. And I do have a song this week too.
Ooh, that's exciting.
This song is called Skin Contact, which is all written as one word, by Living Thing, which is also written as one word. This guy is mysterious. He's Canadian. I think I know who he is, but I'm not going to spoil that.
Ooh.
Anyway, his music sounds like Matty Healy of the 1975 fame. This song is no exception. This might be the most 1975 sounding song that I've ever heard, not by the band. And it is incredible because not only is he doing this kind of like imitation, but he's also adding in his own flavor of melodies, which are so good. And big fan of this. It's like a slow kind of soft rock R&B jam about falling in love with someone. So if that sounds like your thing, highly recommend this. Once again, ending the year on a very positive note, because this is a at least 4 out of 5, maybe a 4.5. It's that good.
Oh, wow.
So big fan.
We ended the year with just a really positive note in terms of the quality, although mine was also very sad too. But in terms of the quality of what we were listening and watching to, that was very positive, which I think is great.
We do have to say, however, Rob Reiner, we did talk about him on the podcast before he died. So unfortunately, I do wonder if we are contributing to this.
Sadly.
We just got to talk about it. We got to address it, bring it up, just to acknowledge it. I feel like the more we acknowledge it, the less it's going to happen. I hope. So I guess at the end of every episode, we should just say, I hope everyone from this episode survives.
At this point, we pretty much can't say any names. We just got to be like, oh yeah, this guy did this and then did that and then yay.
Yeah, yet Harvey Weinstein and P. Diddy are still both alive. And we've talked about them extensively on the podcast. So
that tracks for how this world just is.
But now it's time to venture into a new world with our number 1 overall album and movie. And we're going to start it off just like we did in the top 10 episode with the album. And kind of like we always do, keeping it consistent for you guys. We're back to normal now. No more scary extra episodes that come out on the same day. 2 in 1 week. What are we thinking? So this is Never Always by the band CAMINO. Talk about an artist that I've been talking about a lot this year. This is their 3rd album, kind of, released July 25th, 2025 by Atlantic Records. There were 4 singles from this album: Infinity in April, Baggy Jeans in May, and the double single Stupid Questions and Hates Me Yet in June. And the reason I say this is kind of their 3rd album is because their first album is an EP, but it's 8 songs long. So it falls into that range of like, who knows what it is. At the time, right, I remember it being marketed as an album, but it seems to have retroactively been deemed an EP. And then that also means that their debut album would be self-titled. So it does make a little bit more sense in that way. So the band CAMINO is Garrison Burgess, Jeffrey Jordan, and Spencer Stewart from Memphis, Tennessee. The latter 2 of which are both co-lead vocalists. However, this album has Jeffrey doing the majority of the lead vocals, which is quite uncommon for them. They usually split roughly 50-50, and each album will have like some songs that are just one singer, but this album is almost exclusively Jeffrey, which is very different.
Yeah, I was going to say I didn't really notice like different voices. It all sounded like one voice or mostly sounded like one voice.
I think you will notice it on one song specifically, and we'll talk about that because it does have a different kind of vibe almost than some of the other songs, but we'll get there. And I did want to say, This is uncommon for them to only have one vocalist doing the majority of the work. However, the vinyl LP says Volume 1 on the sleeve. And they released this album in July. And since then, they've put out 2 more singles in October and December. I have talked about both of them, which would suggest a Volume 2 coming relatively soon. So this is kind of an incomplete album, but we'll talk about that as well, because I do have a note specifically about that. Now, this is a pop rock breakup album, in case you couldn't tell, but it also has influences from country music, which could be due to the fact that they live in Nashville now and are working with songwriters who are primarily in country. I wanted to ask you, I've been talking about the band CAMINO all year. Did you ever listen to any of their music before now?
So I have actually heard a few of their songs. I don't know from which album, but I have come across them before. That being said, my knowledge is very, very limited because I've only heard a few, and most of them I've heard like a while ago. So
I did want to ask you, since you have a baseline, was this what you expected? We should just get that out of the way right now.
That's true. It was pretty similar. I think in some ways it was not 100% what I remembered, although honestly, like, my memory is very bad. So take that with a grain of salt. I feel like in some ways it was more indie than I remembered, while also being very, very like pop forward. It feels like a rock that has a lot of indie and pop in it, which I remember a lot of elements of pop, but I didn't remember a lot of elements of indie. So that was kind of unexpected. I will say I do remember like the style very specifically though. That kind of stayed the same.
Yeah, I will say that this album does get a little bit more acoustic than some of their older stuff. They used a lot of electric guitars in their older music, and we get some actual like regular strumming of acoustic guitars in here. We get a little bit of piano at some points too. It is a little bit quieter almost, like as a whole, than some of their older music.
That's interesting.
This album is mixed by John Castelli and mastered by Dale Becker. And I think your favorite song on here will be Stupid Questions or the intro track Has Just Begun. And I think your least favorite will be Can't Go Back.
That's really interesting. All right, let's do it.
All right, track number 1, a potential favorite for you, Has Just Begun, written by the band CAMINO and produced by Garrison Burgess. I've got a lot of notes on most of these songs because it is my number 1 album after all. So
right.
I'm just going to get into them right away. I said, what a beautiful intro. And now I got a few breakdowns for you here. There's some lyrics in here. One of them is Color from Black and White. The Black and White is a song by them from their EP, My Thoughts on You. It also presents the idea of black and white thinking, or never and always thinking. The binary, in my opinion, is are we in love or not, which also ties together the idea that you'll be forever together. Hence, the lyric, like watching what's infinite begin again, which I think is a great line, and it's also a reference, obviously, to the final track, Infinity. This song will begin the loop of Infinity where the album is played again. So you listen to Infinity, and then you come back, and we're starting Infinity over again, which is kind of the line. I got another line for you. The moment I met you, I changed my direction. Maybe this is what falling in love is. I think that's one of the most romantic lines that I've ever heard in a song. And then I, of course, have to shout out the vocoder because it brings out so many different emotions in a vocal performance, and it's used so well here. And I know you won't like it because you don't like vocal manipulation, but I still chose this as potentially being your favorite song because I think you would enjoy the lyrics. But now that you're laughing about it, I can tell that you don't like this, and this is probably a 2.5. I also want to say that I think this album overall will be a 3 for you, but there will be 2 songs that are 3.5s on here.
So, okay. Yes, I did laugh because this is my least favorite song, but I think you will be just surprised to find that I do in general like this more than you might think I do. This song is a 3. I like the vibes, I enjoy them. The vocal manipulations are not for me. I will agree with that, but I really like the piano in this. And I really like the use of piano throughout the whole album. And ultimately, even though it has vocal manipulations, I'm okay with this. Like, I will put this, if this comes on the radio, I will play this. And I will say this is my least favorite song, and it only goes up from here. Even though it might not be the most positive beginning, I had a positive experience with this album. And I also did want to say, I think a large reason why you like this so much is because the piano is so present in this album, which I also really like.
Yes, but I think more in this song, it's the vocoder, because I love the vocoder.
Well, and I'm not saying that's the only reason you like it, but I feel like that adds to it for sure.
Oh, absolutely. It always does. Rarely has a piano taken away from the music, except for maybe Elton John. Sorry.
Yeah, tracks.
My apologies. I also realized I forgot to rate this song. This is a 4.5 for me. This is not my favorite.
Wow. I know you're going to the fives.
Oh, yeah. You know it because, yeah. I mean, I said, I think the top 5 albums this year all had a perfect 5 song. And you know what?
True.
Maybe I got a little surprise for you about that.
Oh, you have multiple, pretty much.
But before that, we got to get to track number 2, Pieces, written by the band CAMINO and produced by Garrison Burgess. This is a self-destructive anthem, which feels like a little bit of whiplash from the intro. Mm-hmm. But I think this song sets up the narrative of the breakup, which is present in this album. It's someone who's insecure and unmotivated, which partly leads to the demise of their relationship. The other half of the end of their relationship we will explore in the following song. We finally get to hear Spencer's voice, kind of, because he says, "So good on me" in the background in the post-chorus. And this song is a classic The Band CAMINO style song. It's pop rock, it's anthemic, it has lyrics written about the self, but sung in a way where it's like, who else can relate to me? And if you like this song, you will probably like most of their discography. This song is a 4 for me.
Yeah, I feel like this kind of reminded me of what I remembered them sounding like more. With the next song, I just wanted to throw this out there. With the next song, I did enter this little period where I didn't have much to say about the song. I do have quite a bit to say about this song, though. I think I kind of remembered, their previous music from this song, and the fact, and, I did like it. And the same with that, I liked what I had heard before. I also liked this. This is a step up to me. In some ways, it feels very 2010s. I'm not exactly sure why. Maybe because it reminded me of their previous music. But I particularly like the beat and production. And I think in a lot of ways, those are my favorite elements throughout the album, which tracks. That's typically what I like. This is a 3.5. This is definitely a step up from the opening song. And as we will often find with stuff that kind of is indie or reminds me of indie music.
Oh, we are locked into 3.5.
Well,
let's go.
I'm going to say, a little bit later, we lock into another score for a little period. So
2. No,
that'll be a little surprise. 1.5. Not kidding.
I hope it's 4. You don't have to spoil it. Anyway, maybe it's around Stupid Questions. Who knows? Which I picked to be your favorite song. That was the one I genuinely thought was. And then I was like, Has Just Begun. I feel like you are gravitating more towards like romantic songs recently. But then I kind of,
I can see
for
that.
some reason, I just don't think about the vocoder. Like it literally does nothing to me. Like it doesn't take away from the song. I forget that it takes away from the song for you. So
no, but I mean, I can see why you picked that song for me too. I can see it.
Yeah, it's the most romantic song on the album. An album about like breaking up with someone. I know you like to fall in love, so.
I do, man. I love being in love.
Amen. Track number 3, What You Can't Have. Written by Jackson Foote, Jonah Shai, and the band CAMINO, and produced by Jonah Shai. This was the promotional single on the day of the album's release. I gotta say, shout out Chicago. I actually heard this while I was on my way to Chicago. And in one of the, I think it's the second line of the song, they say you're in London, you're in Chicago. Yeah, so big shout out, of course. I said, talk about a great premise for a song. Some of my favorite lines on here are, "You're in I just can't commit, so call it quit-er."
Man.
This is insane. I didn't really think, you have to see it written for it to make sense. So essentially, she says, "I just can't commit, so call it quit." And he's like, that's what you always say.
Yeah.
It's crazy, and I really enjoy that.
I wish that I looked at the lyrics, read them, so I would have noticed that more.
You always can. I will remind you. Maybe I should start sending you the Genius link to every song.
Honestly, yeah. I should just start
every
listening.
week.
Every single week.
And then another line that I really like is, "You play guitar, but you want to be a drummer." This might be my favorite line of the whole song because it's so surface level and it's so like stupid and like throwaway, but it gives you a perfect idea into who this person is. It's like you care about the stupidest things ever. And I don't know, it's fun. Of course, this song we get both Spencer and Jeffrey on the chorus, which is amazing. We finally get to hear their voices together. The guitar counter melody in the second and third choruses is such a fun little moment, and it keeps it sounding so fresh while adding just a little bit of like something else. And then finally, I said, is this a country song? I kind of think yes. It's pop and rock, but it also has a little bit of a shuffle, and it's got a little more twang than some of the other songs on the album. It's a little bit more like rooted in country, I feel like. Anyway, this song is a 4.5. I very much enjoyed this song.
Yeah. So as I said before, we're kind of entering the era of the album where I don't have much to say, but I can definitely see, a country influence in this song, especially if they are working with writers that primarily write for country.
The funniest thing about this one is Jackson Foote is a pop writer, and Jonas Shai is doing more like other kind of like electro pop is what he used to do. Now he's more into like indie pop spaces. Like these are not the country writers, which is the crazy part because the country writers on other songs that don't sound as country as this one.
That is really ironic. I would not have expected that, to be honest. But hey, I mean, that still shines through in this song, I guess. In some ways, I feel like I want some of these songs to strike me a little bit more, but ultimately they do still work. And they're the type of songs that I could imagine like driving to or something like that. Kind of to your point about how you were listening to this while you were driving. I could totally see that, see me listening to this while driving. Except unlike a lot of the music where that comes to mind, I would not listen to this during the night. I would listen to this during the day. That's kind of like what just popped into my head. It feels like daytime driving music.
I agree, and I like to give my like albums a time of year, and this album is very much September to me, like early September.
I can see that.
Like the leaves are just starting to change. It's still warm, but it's not like super warm.
I was about to say it's a September where it's still warm, where it hasn't fully gone into winter yet. Like you're starting to see the effects, but it's not fully there. Yeah, this is a 3.5. Again, very, very consistent. And that will continue for a little while longer until we get to a certain song.
I do want to say one thing about your note of this feeling like there's not really, like you wanted it to catch you more, because that's kind of the reaction I had when this album first came out. I was like, oh, this is good.
So it kind of grew on you.
And I was listening to it more. Yes, this album grew on me a lot. Like I knew I liked it.
Right.
But it didn't have a lot of those moments that really like drew me in, kind of like some of their other albums. But I will say some of their other albums are a lot more hit or miss. There's a few, like on their debut, the Yellow album, which is their self-titled. There's like 2 songs on it that I don't ever go back to because I just don't really like them that much. But some of the highs are a lot more memorable on that. But I will say this album doesn't have a song that I don't like. Wait, did I say that correctly? I can never do the double negative correctly. This song
doesn't have.
No, this album has songs that I like. Every single one I like on here. That's what I'm trying to say. It doesn't have a song that I don't like. I think that's correct. I can't think now. I'm stressing myself out. Anyway, what I wanted to say is that what this album lacks in that like big standout moment, which I do still think it has after listening to it a lot, I think it makes up for it in its consistency because every one of these songs is good.
Which is something that I absolutely agree with because this album is incredibly consistent. I know a lot of albums have been very consistent to me in the indie genre, but even then you will have songs where, it does dip down and sometimes it dips pretty far down. But my lowest score here is a 3. Like there's nothing bad in this album. I like everything. Even if my least favorite song, I think it's just fine. It's not like great or anything. I still like will listen to it. I don't dislike it at all. So I think that does speak to like the strength of the album.
The good thing about your least favorite song being the first song is you can just hit play from track 2 and then just listen to the full album as well, which is underrated.
That's another nice thing.
If it's the first or the last song, it's super easy to just listen to the album and then like stop it when it gets to the last song or like start it from track 2.
Although I will say that does make it so that you lose like the infinity effect.
That is true.
That's the downside.
This is an album that I want to listen to in full most of the time, I will say. But we got to talk about track number 4, Limbo, written by Jordan Schmidt, Seth Ennis, and the band Camino, produced by Jordan Schmidt, who used to be Jordan M. Schmidt, but now got rid of the M. It's still there, legally, but not in his professional name anymore. I don't have a lot to say about this song. I think it's a dreamy and spacey rock song that has elements of dream pop almost. We get a huge instrumental bridge, and it has some wall of sound vibes to it. And then I only wrote one other note. It has a simple post-chorus, just "I'm yours," repeated 3 times, but it is so beautiful. This is a 4.5 for me. I really love this song. I wish I had more to say about it. It's just really nice. It's a great experience. This is a very like fall driving song to me.
Yeah, the thing I definitely noticed the most about the song is just the pure vibes coming off of it, which made me enjoy it a lot. It's also 3, or not also, because you gave it 4.5. It's a 3.5 for me. Again, just staying super consistent, which I will say, I feel like when an album is super consistent, I think that's maybe a reason why it is such a good driving album, because you could just put it on and, it just kind of keeps on giving you like consistent songs. And that's kind of what you want, I feel like, you don't want it to keep on going back and forth to where you need to like go to the next song or go back or something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think another underrated aspect of like driving music is it has to be musically interesting, but then it also has to be melodically simple enough that it's easy for you to sing along by the end of the song. Like, I think that's pop rock is just great for driving in general. And that's one of my favorite genres, one of my favorite like offshoots of just regular pop music.
Like, I completely agree.
It's single time. Track number 5, Baggy Jeans, which was one of the singles, written by Captain Cuts, which consists of Ben Berger and Rian Rabin, and the band Camino. It's produced by Jordan Schmidt and Captain Cuts. Somehow we have never talked about Captain Cuts on here before. I think they are some of the best producers and songwriters currently working. And I will have a little note at the end, but they will come up eventually once we do more albums. I can think of a few albums that I want to do next season that they contributed to one song. They also often seem to be lead single kind of people where you'll bring them in for like a smaller artist and have them co-write and co-produce the lead single with them. And it always turns out to be one of the best songs on the album.
That does tell me though that this is probably a 5 from you.
You know what? I'm going to spoil it right now. This is actually a 4. I don't like this one as much as the others.
Oh, really?
Which is kind of weird, but I got a lot of notes first. So the intro of the song is kind of dreamy, and I didn't think it fit when I first heard it, but it really smooths out the transition between the emotional melancholy of Limbo and the energetic fuck you-ness of Baggy Jeans. This will be something that I bring up once more in this album, but this is kind of how I live my life as a songwriter. You can tell good pop music by how the writers handle pre-chorus and the different ways to enter the chorus. This is a textbook example of how to build up expectations and then break them in the correct way. The pre-chorus only appears one time in this song, and it's a great pre-chorus. And you aren't able to tell necessarily that it only appears one time because it's not memorable enough where you want it again, but it works perfectly in the story and melodically to set up that first chorus. Of course, we get Spencer on the chorus and the bridge of this song, which is unique, The power pop breakdown for the final chorus didn't work for me at first, but seeing it live did change my opinion because it does go really hard when they slow down the tempo and then just go crazy at the end. And then, like I said, I have to shout out Captain Cuts. They have been making so many consistently great songs for a bunch of artists that I didn't even know. Then a lot of the times the first song I'd hear by a newer artist was produced by Captain Cuts, and then none of their other music would live up to that because they're just so good at what they do. So yeah, I wanted to shout them out and say that they are some of the best songwriters and producers that I've heard in pop music and like pop adjacent stuff. So shout out. This is a 4, like I said. So I like this song, but I wasn't like super sold on it at first. It's not my least favorite technically, but my least favorite will be a 4 because that is as low as I go on this album.
For this song, most of my notes are actually about the opening. I found it to be really, really interesting. And honestly, I mainly wanted to ask, do you know what instrument they used for the opening? Because I found it to be such an like interesting and specific sound that I couldn't place, even if it is something that, I have heard a bajillion times before.
It's definitely a synthesizer of some kind, but I don't really know.
Okay,
this is like one of those noises where it's like, I would really like to recreate that, and I don't really know how I would do it. It sounds almost synth string-like, but I really don't know. But it's very nice, and it's dreamy.
I think it works very, very well.
What did you give this song?
Oh, I forgot to say. This is a 3.5, kind of continuing our trend. I will say the next song will break that trend.
Wow. Okay. Well, I picked this to be your least favorite. Track number 6, Can't Go Back, written by Charlie Martin, Rudy, and the band Camino, produced by Rudy and Garrison Burgess. And I want to shout out Charlie Martin real quick. We haven't done an album by Howdy, Hovvdy is how the band name is spelled, but one of their albums and Whitney's album was what I was trying to choose between for that episode. And I ended up going with Whitney because I knew that album a little bit more. But I wanted to shout that out because we'll probably do one of their albums in the future. I think they're very good as well. So this song is the most different sounding song on here, kind of along with the intro, but it fits so nicely into the story and the sonics of the album. To me, this song feels connected to What You Can't Have, kind of not necessarily in theme, but just almost sonically, even though they're very different. I love the repeated, indistinguishable vocal chop in the background. This whole song feels understated. I could easily see how this could be overproduced and turned into an anthem type of song like they usually do. And I'm so glad that it isn't, because there's a beauty in that sad softness that you don't get anywhere else on the album. The little production moments of ear candy throughout the song are so cool and add so much while still remaining in the background and not taking away from anything in the song. I think the guitar solo goes insane. My only complaint about this song is I wish that they performed this live on their tour, but they didn't, so maybe next time I see them, they will perform it live. This song has everything you hate. Borderline trap drums, vocal manipulation, and the fact that it is my favorite on the album. This is a perfect 5.
So I'm going to just throw out my score to just break the suspense right now, because this song is a 4.5 and my favorite on the whole album.
Oh my God, we have the same favorite? This hasn't happened in forever.
In agreement, yeah.
First time in like 3 months or something like that. I wasn't expecting this because I thought, well, I mean, you know what I said.
I know exactly what you said. I know, it feels like there's so much in here that should make me not like it, but it just really works for me. Like, I feel like in some ways, the sound is a little different, even though it's still very cohesive with the album. And I think maybe that made me like it more. I think ultimately just the production and the vocals together really work for me in this song. And I do like the, slightly quieter tone and the piano that the song brings to the album. I also want to say a great guitar solo. I really like that part too. I originally gave this a 4, but it was a very high 4. And eventually I just decided to give it a 4.5, especially considering that this is like the 3rd episode in a row where I'm like, oh, this is a high score. And then I eventually bump it up. I was kind of like, you know what? It deserves a 4.5. I'm going to give it that. So yeah. And not to spoil things, but this song kind of kicked off a little section that was more positive than the first section. Because I do believe that the second half of this album is stronger than the first half.
I will say one last thing about this song. When I first listened to this album, I immediately thought this is a 5. Sometimes there's songs where I'm like, oh, this is really good, and then it grows on me more. This one I just knew from first listen. I was like, this is my favorite on the album. I hadn't even listened to the second half of the album yet, and I was like, nah, this is it. This is amazing.
Which is always a good feeling.
And track number 7 is another great feeling. Hates Me Yet, in parentheses, 222. It's a great thing to wonder. Written by Jordan Schmidt, Seth Ennis, and the band Camino, and produced by Jonah Shai. And I have a couple things before we get into it. I want to ask you, do you know who Dermot Kennedy is? They say Dermot Kennedy. I don't know if that's how you actually pronounce his name. I've always heard it pronounced Dermot.
I never heard of that.
Okay, cool. I like how you say that. He is a
Or I
he
never
is
heard
a
of
man.
that. Sorry. I don't know why I said that. I don't know why I said that. I've never heard of him.
That's all right. I forgive you. He's an Irish singer. I found him before he was famous, and I really loved his music. Then he blew up with like a piano ballad kind of song, and he hasn't really hit the same heights at all since. And I actually don't really like most of his music anymore. So that was kind of a sad one. But I did find him before he was big, so I'd like to flex that a little bit. And then, of course, one other thing that I have to get out of the way is the first line of the song has a reference to infinity, which, of course, is the theme of the album.
That's fun.
I got a few notes for you, my own personal notes now. When they perform the song live, they said the Iowa football line gets a bunch of different reactions across the Midwest. And I want to let you know that it got a fair amount of cheers where I was in Madison, Wisconsin, because there were a lot of Iowa license plates at the venue. Most of the time, bands don't go to Iowa. They go to Minneapolis or St. Paul and then Chicago. And if you're lucky, they stop in Madison or Milwaukee. But nobody performs in Iowa. So we had a fair amount of cheers, fans of the Iowa Hawkeyes. So shout out. They are Big Ten. So, that's all right.
Did all the what's it called? Jesus, all the Wisconsinites, did they all like boo and start fighting with the Iowans or no?
There weren't too many boos. There were a few groans, but no like boos. They said when they were in Minneapolis or St. Paul, wherever they were, they got some like actual boos for that line because the big rivalry is Minnesota versus Iowa college football. And
okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, so that's pretty good. This song, I think, walks the line between soft rock and country, and it's a nice ballad. So I hope you will enjoy it. Mm-hmm. And then I also wrote, what an incredible bridge. This one is a 4 for me. I like this song.
Like I said before, Can't Go Back kicked off a more positive section of the album. I do think the second half of this album is stronger, like I said before. And in a way, I feel like it's maybe because a lot of the songs are a little quieter and a little more ballady. Not all of them, but I feel like the second half kind of has that vibe more than the first half. And I think that really works for me when the band CAMINO kind of tackles that sort of sound. This song specifically also felt quite a bit melancholic, which y'all know I love being melancholy and nostalgic and all that kind of stuff. So this is a 4. I thought this is good. You will see that I will have like quite a few 4s coming up.
Same score.
So yeah, this is a good song. Yeah, same score. We went from having this same favorite song to having the same score.
Track number 8, Me Around You, written by Gabe Simon and the band CAMINO, produced by Garrison Burgess. It is Spencer Stewart time. Now this is technically my least favorite song, only because it's my least played song from the album, but I still really enjoy it. And this is still a 4, of course. Also, this song is such a relatable feeling. Big shout out to being insecure and feeling uncomfortable around everyone. And then I have one other note that I think would make me like this song more. Honestly, I wish this was track 9 and Stupid Questions was track 8. I feel like I would like that flow a little bit more. And I feel like I would enjoy going from Hates Me Yet, which was paired with Stupid Questions as a double single, and then going right into that. And then you go to Me Around You, you go to Karaoke, which is also a really sad one. Like, I feel like for me, it just flows a little bit better. But that's my only like main complaint about the album overall. So this one is a 4. It's technically my least favorite, but I didn't even write least favorite down on here because I still really like this song.
I didn't think about the order when I was listening to it. I am kind of intrigued to go back and listen to it with that in my head to see what I think. Maybe I will report back about that.
Don't let it ruin the experience, though.
That's true. Maybe I won't do that then. I'll see.
I've listened to this album at least 20 times, though, so now I can be like, oh, why is it not a 5? Perfect 5, I see. Which I guess I'm going to spoil it, but...
okay.
I did say at the beginning of last episode that I didn't have any perfect 5 albums this year. So
that's true. I didn't have any perfect 5 movies either. But for this song, it put the word sweet into my brain and I carried it around there for the day. I don't know why, but it did. I think it has a really good build to the chorus, and overall I feel like the melody and the production really come together in this specific song. Like it really worked for me here. And I also particularly like the quiet part in the middle. And pretty much all of this comes together to this being probably my second favorite song on the album. So we're kind of going back to your least favorite being my favorite. This is a 4. We're in agreement again. This is probably my second favorite, even though I didn't specifically like choose when I was listening to it. Looking back at my notes now, I think this is my second favorite.
Track number 9. This is the one I said would be your favorite. This is Stupid Questions, written by Jordan Schmidt, Seth Ennis, and the band Camino, produced by Jordan Schmidt and Garrison Burgess. Like I said before, look at the pre-chorus to chorus and you can see how good a pop songwriter is, and this is another textbook example of how to create those moments. This is just a banger pop rock song that sounds like classic Camino. We even get a guitar solo in here that, in my opinion, sounds like it could be layered with a synth, but I don't really know. It could just be a very unique sound to the guitar, but it's very cool and it sounds like classic them. And I said, once again, if you like this song, you will love the band because this is a textbook Band Camino song. This one is also a 4 for me.
Yeah, I feel like you can definitely feel that it is kind of a return to their, for lack of a better word, more typical style, because it felt a lot more rock forward than a lot of the previous songs on the albums, which feel more indie and a lot of other elements forward, for lack of a better way of phrasing that. But yeah, this song, I like this song. It didn't really work for me as much as the previous songs, ironically. I still like it. It's a 3.5. I would still put this on. But for some reason, maybe the style that they went for in this specific album just works better for me than their typical style. Although I know that I do still like their typical style because obviously I still like this song and I've heard other songs of theirs that I still like. So yeah, kind of interesting because you would think that a rock forward song would work really well for me. But yeah, what can I say?
That was my thought process, by the way. I thought this is the most kind of like anthemic rock sounding song. I was like, you never know. I could see it.
Oh yeah, it makes sense. I was surprised myself too. So there's that.
I once again forgot that the cheat code really is just picking the song that I like the least and just saying that'll be your favorite, because that would have gotten me closer.
True.
I can never predict when we're going to have the same favorite, though. That just seems completely random to me.
That's impossible to predict. Literally impossible. I have no idea how to predict that either.
Track number 10, Karaoke. Written by the band Camino, produced by Garrison Burgess. This could either be a country song or a shoegaze song, and somehow it is neither and exists in the space between them. I think this song has the best chorus on the whole album and is one of their best ever. This is one of those melodies where it's like, how has no one else done this? It's so simple, but it's so good. And I'm realizing that I love songs that are slow in both tempo and structure, but I've just heard so many terrible ass ballads that I forget that they can be good a lot of the time.
Right.
And then this was the big surprise for me coming into this album. I said, fuck it, this is a 5. I thought I only had one 5 on here. This one's also a 5 though. This is a perfect song. I have no problems with this whatsoever. And this live was incredible as well.
Yeah, I would not have expected that at all, to be honest. Knowing you are not typically a fan of ballads. Yeah, that's kind of crazy. So we're kind of bringing back the divide because this is a 3.5. Again, I still like this. It is a really nice, quieter song, but it, again, doesn't catch me as much as some of the other songs. Not to ruin things, though, for what my score is for the last song, but the last song kind of brings it home. So don't worry. This was just a little dip for a second. But I think that this song does kind of continue the trend of the second half of the album being quieter and a little more melancholic, maybe, which did work for me a little bit more than the first half, although I still enjoyed the first half. So yeah, this is a 3.5. And I also want to say I'm scared of doing karaoke because my voice sucks. At least I feel like it does.
Well, I'm right there with you. We got one final song here. We're going to end on a good note. Track number 11, Infinity. Written by Jordan Schmidt, Seth Ennis, and the band CAMINO. Produced by Jordan Schmidt and Garrison Burgess. This song is about LSD.
Hell yeah.
This song has also grown on me the most of any song from the album, and it was the lead single, which I kind of find funny. Like,
wow.
I have heard this song the most, probably, of any of the songs, at least before the album came out, and I was like, it's good, but I really enjoy it now. And I want to say, the breaking up of the lines in the verse with the drums and huge guitars after it is so much fun. And that's actually the thing that when I was finding out how much I loved this song again, was it like got me back into it. It feels like an anthem, but not in the typical band CAMINO way, where it's a little bit more upbeat. Like their anthems are much more like they dig in more. They're more like power pop. And this is not. This is like an upbeat song.
Right.
And at first, it is shocking that this is the last song on the album. But after the initial surprise wore off, I do think its placement is pretty good. And it started to grow on me. I thought Karaoke is a perfect end to the album, but this being the connective tissue between NeverAlways and Volume 2, I think will end up working extremely well, because this song feels less like an end to something like Karaoke does and more like a transition into something else. The initial track listing, like when I first listened to it though, I was kind of like, why is this last? Like it just doesn't fit right, but it has grown on me a lot. And this song is actually a 4.5 now.
Nice, really bringing it home. I'm kind of doing the same thing because this is a 4 for me. So I think the album does end on a high note. And I think that it kind of ends with a bang. I think this is the perfect song to end the album with. It kind of makes you like end the album pumped up, which makes sense because it's a song about LSD. But it does feel very rock forward, which I think maybe also helped me like it more than I did with the two previous songs. And I also did want to say the call and response with the vocals and production is a particular favorite part of the song for me. I think that was just such a great idea to include that. And I think it just, I don't know, it just makes this last song so fun that it turns it into like just a great way to end the album.
Nice. We both ended on a high note. I'm glad about that. And now it's time for our overall score. But before that, I do want to ask you, what did you think about this being your first band CAMINO album? Do you think you're going to be a fan of them? And are you going to listen to this again? Kind of all wrapped up in one question for you.
I mean, I'm definitely going to come back to Can't Go Back, which is an ironic sentence when you put it like that.
Right.
But I think I will, be a fan. I enjoyed it a lot. It's not, I think the style is not my favorite style, but when it comes to this specific style, I feel like they are my favorite in it. So that kind of pushes them up, if you know what that means. So yeah, I think I will definitely come back and be a fan. And I'm very intrigued to listen to their other albums. Because I want to listen to their other sound and their other style that, you've kind of mentioned. So yeah, I am a fan and I'm also very intrigued.
And I guess I kind of wanted to ask, do you think this feels like a good introduction to the band CAMINO? Obviously, you don't know their other stuff, but do you feel like you get kind of a good sampling of what they have to offer? Because this is kind of it's a unique episode where it's not like I picked this on purpose. It's just kind of how it shook out to be this year.
Yeah, I do think that it is a good album because I feel like it has a lot of different styles. Like, I don't know, there's quieter songs, there's, louder songs, there's songs that are more like their, quote unquote typical style. There's songs that, are them kind of experimenting. So I think it can kind of, I don't know, I feel like in a way there's something for everyone in this album, which maybe that would kind of make them not like the previous albums as much because, it's a different style, but I still think it's a good intro.
There's just some artists that I feel like that I really enjoy that I want to kind of ease you into to make sure that you also enjoy them. And I mean, of course, we don't have the same music taste. We're not going to like the same things, but I do hope that you will have an appreciation. So I'm glad that you enjoyed this and this worked out, even though I kind of, just randomly, I guess not randomly picked this, but, it's a different experience than us saying, oh yeah, this is what we want to watch or listen to. So now it's time for your score on this album. What is it? And is it higher than a 3, like I initially said?
It's a 3.5, and not only is it a 3.5, it's actually a very high 3.5 to the point where it's close to being a 4. I feel like, I don't know, I was kind of in the same place where I was, where I was with some of the songs where I was like, oh, it could be this, but it also could be higher. I'm kind of stuck in between 3.5 and maybe giving it a 4. I think ultimately it is a 3.5 just because most of the album is a 3.5, but obviously considering it's a very high 3.5, it did really work for me. And I'm very intrigued to hear more of their work. And obviously you had like that little section where it was just 4s, and then Can't Go Back, which was a 4.5, and is a song that I will be returning to. So this is obviously it obviously worked for me.
I will say, I think this album is a grower. I think the more you listen to it, the more you enjoy it, because I liked this at first.
That's the other thing.
I rated it number 1, but this was a pretty weak year for music at that point. I think I had 5 albums on my list at that point, and I think only 2 of them, or maybe 3 of them, had ended up making the final. This album I just kind of slotted in at number 1, and I was like, oh, it's good. And then I listened to it more and I was like, no, this is really good. And then I was like, this is great. And I eventually said, this is a 4.5. Who knows? Maybe this could get up to a 5 for me in the future. I do think this is their best album. However, I think Try Hard is their best body of work, which is that EP that's 8 songs and maybe not an EP. That was my kind of like introduction to them. That was the first thing I was around for, first body of work I was around for as a fan. And I think that one is just like the perfect mix of pop and rock and their style. And I think that's one is also probably a 4.5. So that would be the other one that I would debate, I guess, introducing you to them with. But that'll be one that we probably do in the future. And of course, it came out in the greatest year for music ever, 2019. So shout out to 2019 real quick. But yeah, I really enjoyed this album, 4.5, like I said. This is my number 1 album of the year. And I want to ask you one little question here. Do you think this could have been the best album of the year?
For me, you mean?
No, just in general. Because obviously this is my list. Do you think there's another album either on my list or that I didn't put on my list or that I didn't even listen to that could be a 4 or above from this year?
Yes, there is one album. And that's 143, Katy Perry, baby. I'm trying to think of the other albums that came out. The only one that's even coming to mind is Maniac by Lady Gaga. Like that's the only
Mayhem.
Oh, sorry, Mayhem. I don't know why I said Maniac. Mayhem.
I don't know. It feels right.
Yeah, in a way. So I don't know. I also haven't listened to that album all the way through, so I can't say. I'm kind of stuck. I guess I'll say yeah, sure, because I don't know. That's my answer. I generally don't know.
It's kind of a trick question because I think like there's obviously no way we can know everything that has happened this year, especially as someone who doesn't pay attention to music. And as I will find out, someone who doesn't pay attention to movies with this one. I just thought it was kind of an interesting question because obviously everyone's going to have their own opinions. And I obviously do because I haven't seen this album included on anyone's top 10s, top 50s, whatever of the year. And, that's kind of the beauty of music because we're all going to find something different. But I'm glad you liked this. And I'm extra glad that we had the same favorite song because that rarely happens.
I'm very happy.
And now I know. Now I can trust that you have good taste. You have won me back.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
But on that note, we have to talk about the number 1 movie of the year.
Exactly. Wake Up Dead Man, which is the 3rd Knives Out movie. I have seen, the subtitle A Knives Out movie some times on posters and stuff like that, but I think officially it is just called Wake Up Dead Man.
I want to say one thing, because my number 10 album of the year was Junior Varsity. It was an EP. It was a deluxe edition of an EP that technically came out last year. Now, this movie technically came out next year because it was released December 12th on Netflix. But David was able to see this live in person in a theater before it came out on Netflix. And I really did not want to watch Friendship again. So I am letting him choose this as his number one.
We are counting its release in theaters. It had like a limited release, very, very limited. So we're going to count that as its release, because if we count that, it came out November 26th.
Which is very close to the end of our cutoff. It's 4 days, but
yes, 4 days away.
I appreciate that, and I'm so glad that this was the movie we watched, because I wanted to watch this anyway.
Perfect. There we go. And I will say I watched this on my birthday, so that kind of made it extra special.
Shout out, David turned 30 this year.
Exactly. I can finally post that Office meme with Creed Bratton. Anyways.
You're even dyeing your hair just like him.
Ironically, I'm getting a haircut soon, so the podcast art might go obsolete. I'm very sorry to our amazing artist that made it, T-Bort.
Wait.
But I am cutting my hair.
How short are you going? This might be an emergency.
Well, I'm not going to shave it. I'm going to cut it like short, but
like
not super short.
As short as me, or are we talking like shorter than my hair?
Shorter.
Oh man,
shorter.
This is going to be crazy.
Oh yeah, shorter.
I mean, I already shaved off my mustache too, so like
yeah, that's true.
This is crazy.
In like 5 years, we're going to look totally
I love
different.
the David long hair arc, I must say.
I know a lot of people love it. I also really like it. I think just at some point, I'm just tired of it.
That's fair.
I don't want to deal with the putting it up every day, which is something I have to do with very, very, very wavy hair. So, yeah. I need a break. But hey, it could always come back.
I do want to ask, does this mean you're also changing your facial hair? Or is this a surprise?
I've been thinking about it, but probably not. I don't know. I think I got to wait and see what it looks like with the short hair. But yeah, maybe I'll just keep like the stash and the goatee.
This is a big change.
Big things are changing. It's,
this is scary for me, actually.
We're starting a new year. They say new year, new me.
That's true.
I have learned not to make any actual resolutions. So instead, my resolution is to just get a haircut. So there we go.
That's pretty good.
I've
been thinking about getting a haircut too. Not that drastic though. Maybe like an inch or two off the bottom, but I'm not going back to short hair, at least not yet.
Oh, okay.
Short hair makes me look like 5 years younger, and especially not having the mustache, I look like a child, and I'm not trying to look like a child right now.
I mean, that way you could get a cougar as a girlfriend or something. Just saying.
That would imply that my girlfriend is a pedophile.
Okay, that's true. I take it back. Anyways, you could dye your hair like
Wake Up Dead Man
again if it's shorter.
I do want to dye it pink. But anyway, Wake Up Dead Man.
Well, you could do half pink, half purple. Anyways, Wake Up Dead Man. I just want to say this. Amazing title. I love the title. But let's get the IMDb logline out of the way. So here goes. Are you ready for this logline?
I am ready.
Benoit Blanc returns for his most dangerous case yet. That's the logline. I hate this logline.
Wait, that's it?
That's it. I hate it. It doesn't explain
That's so
anything.
Stupid. That
it could be for
actually
any of the movies.
Takes the cake as the worst logline we've ever seen on this show. Holy shit, that's terrible.
To be honest, I thought it was fake, but that's what it says on IMDb. So
that's almost, you almost have to respect that. Like Netflix was like, we spent way too much money on this movie. Fuck it, no logline.
No logline. Just put like the description when we release details that we are greenlighting this movie. That's kind of what they did. Oh, it's about Benoit Blanc.
That is what it sounds like.
Yeah, it's really idiotic. Our feelings on Netflix aside.
Yeah, shout out David Ellison. We haven't talked about that at all, actually.
Oh, God.
But
I just read that Warner Brothers is not going with Paramount.
I do want to say one thing about David Ellison, and that is that he looks like if Tom Brady's face got fucked up and like melted. Like he looks like a wax figure of Tom Brady that melted into like a new form.
I can see that.
I hate him. I'm sorry. Actually, I'm not sorry. He's a terrible person.
Don't be sorry. Never be sorry.
You know what? If I say that I hope he dies, then he won't die. So I'm not going to say that. I hope he lives and prospers.
You're trying to do the opposite of like you're trying to do our effect pretty much, but you're prompting it.
Yes. Yeah. I'm trying to use our gift for good, but.
Exactly.
Anyway, wake up, dead man.
Wake up, dead man. Let's get the credits out of the way quick, or else we're going to be here forever. The movie is written and directed, obviously, by Rian Johnson. It's produced by Rian Johnson, Ram Bergman, who produced the first films with Rian Johnson, and Katie McNeil. You can keep that in if you want. The cinematography is done by Steve Yedlin, who also did the I can't say that word. Who did the
cinematography.
Jennifer's over here saying it to me. So mean. Okay. Cinematography.
Beautiful.
For the first two films, too. The film is edited by...
Shout out Armenia. We haven't said it. You just said Jennifer. So shout out Armenia.
Jennifer. Okay.
I got it.
Screw you.
Let's go. Anyway, wake up, dead man.
I got to write that in my notes. Okay, anyways, wake up, dead man. The movie is... Did I say who the music was by?
I don't remember.
The music is by Nathan Johnson. And I don't know. I don't know if I'm lost. Anyways, wake up, dead man. The movie is distributed by Netflix, and the movie stars Daniel Craig, Josh O'Connor, Glenn Close, and a bajillion others. It's an ensemble movie, arguably. We'll talk about that later. But let's get through my notes. I don't have a lot. This just came out. Typically, more information about the making of movies come out in the following years. So there's not much about this movie out there. So I will just quickly talk about it. But this movie is a sequel, and it's a sequel to Knives Out, which came out in 2019. It received critical acclaim. It was a big hit. It made $312 million on a budget of $40 million. And writer and director Rian Johnson was really interested in making sequels that would each follow Benoit Blanc investigating murders, with each movie being, a standalone sequel, being its own thing. He's a big fan of Agatha Christie mysteries, where you kind of have the same thing, where every book follows, the same detectives as they uncover standalone mysteries. Now, I love this first film. I think it's just hilarious and amazing. I also love Agatha Christie, so I'm totally on the same page with Rian Johnson. But I just wanted to throw that out there because I think that the context of the series is important when talking about this film, because we will be comparing it to the first film and the second film, because Wake Up Dead Man is the third. The second film, Glass Onion, was made by Netflix because Netflix acquired the rights to two sequels to Knives Out. The original was made by Lionsgate, which, boy, do they probably wish that they did not sell this to Netflix. They made some money, though, because Netflix bought the rights for two sequels for $400 million, which is crazy.
I guess that has financed all of their box office bombs for the past 2 years.
Exactly. Every single bomb that they have had. But they released the first sequel. I didn't even write down the date because I forgot, but I believe it was 2022 or 2023. But it also received critical acclaim, even if it wasn't to the level of the first film. And in typical Netflix fashion, it received a limited theatrical release, which I am really annoyed by, but Netflix is gonna Netflix. What can I say? So after Glass Onion was released, Johnson right away began working on Wake Up Dead Man. This movie is inspired heavily by Agatha Christie, who was, of course, the inspiration for the whole series. And in this specific case, it was directly inspired by her novel, And Then There Were None, which is actually my favorite novel of hers. So maybe that's why I like this movie so much. Johnson was also inspired by Edgar Allan Poe, which you can definitely see with its gothic vibes, and by John Dixon Carr, who is obviously directly referenced in the film. Now, Johnson was raised in a strict evangelical setting. And he directly brought his experience with that into the film, specifically when writing Blanc's mixed feelings on religion. That being said, he changed evangelicalism to Catholicism in the movie purely for aesthetic reasons, which it paid off.
I was going to say, Catholicism looks crazy, and it's easily the best religion to like look 100%.
At. It goes hard. It goes so hard. When you have a Gothic church, it's kind of hard to beat that. Like, I'm sorry, but it is.
It really is.
And plus they're chanting in Latin. Like, it works. The movie was confirmed in January 2023, or rather the fact that Johnson was writing it was confirmed. And this is also when he said that he wanted to change the subtitle A Knives Out Mystery to a Benoit Blanc mystery. Again, in the spirit of classic mystery novels like Agatha Christie, which I support. And when it comes to the title of the film, it looks like there are two possible sources for it, although it could have also been both of them at the same time. One source that I saw was the folk prison song Ain't No More Cain in the Brazos. And then the other source was the U2 song of the same name. Now that does kind of, I kind of feel like the U2 song being the influence is maybe a little bit more true, because I know the last two movies were also influenced by songs from bands. The Knives Out was influenced by a Radiohead song, and then Glass Onion was influenced by a Beatles song. So that kind of makes me believe that it was influenced by the U2 song of the same name. Now, Daniel Craig obviously returned, and he was paid $100 million for his involvement in Glass Onion and Wake Up Dead Man, which, if I got paid that much to do something, I would retire. That's all I'm going to say. This is obviously a ensemble movie, so a large cast was assembled. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention that Jeremy Renner, who plays Dr. Nat in this film, is actually referenced by his real name in Glass Onion. So his casting is kind of this meta casting, where he exists in this universe as himself, i.e. Jeremy Renner. I said Jennifer Renner. And as his character. I kind of like Jennifer Renner more. I think that sounds better.
Yeah.
Anyways,
probably also a better person than Jeremy Renner.
Probably. Yeah. Probably.
Just because he got run over, we're suddenly forgetting that he also has misconduct allegations.
Well, and speaking of run over.
Anyways, Wake Up Dead Man.
Wake Up Dead Man. Speaking of run over, this is actually his first movie that was released following his near life-ending incident where he was run over by a snowplow. And actually I have a quote from him talking about making the film, where he said, quote, "It's a lot of support, man. It's lovely to have it. There's such a communion and camaraderie that happens, especially on a movie like this. This is not even really a movie to me. It's more like a stage play. We're always together. We're always in each other's faces, even when we're acting. When you have 15 people on a camera, you spend a lot of time with them. It reminds me of doing a play. It feels good to be back and welcomed back to the job that I love with really great people," end quote. Someone else that was very excited to be in this film was actually Glenn Close. She said, quote, "Well, when I got the phone call, it was like something out of heaven. I never thought of myself in one of the Knives Out movies, and I was so thrilled to be included. To hear about everyone else who was in it. We just became this wonderful ensemble company, and we kept each other company through the whole shoot. We were always in our tent laughing, sleeping, reading, getting to know each other. It's one of the great gifts to have such an intense experience with people who you know will be your dear friends for the rest of your life," end quote. So it seems like shooting was very, very fun. They mainly shot in London, and ironically, they almost shot the film in reverse chronological order, because they started out with Daniel Craig, Mila Kunis, and Josh O'Connor filming. Then the rest of the cast joined, and then finally Josh Brolin joined at the very end. Close also came down with COVID-19 at one point during filming. Happily, she pulled through and continued. And I did want to say, the exteriors of the church is actually the Church of the Holy Innocents in High Beach, 11 miles from London. So you can go visit High Beach to see where they shot Wake Up Dead Man. Now, as I said, I don't have a lot of stuff to say about the movie, so we're just going to talk about the release. And I do have some stuff to talk about when it comes to the future of the Knives Out series. The movie premiered at the Toronto International Film Festival in September 2025. And now Glass Onion already had a scaled back theatrical window compared to the first film. Well, Netflix decided that they wanted to scale the theatrical window for this film even further back. Johnson and Craig pushed back. They really fought this, and they were able to get Netflix to agree to a 2-week window. That being said, it was still a limited release. Not all theaters had this film. The only theaters that I saw this film playing at was, local theaters / specialty theaters, stuff like the, Chinese theater in Hollywood and the Egyptian theater that Netflix literally owns. So it was like very, very scaled back. None of the big chain theaters had this film. So it was very scaled back. Largely because of that, it only grossed $3 million on a budget of $131 million, which obviously Netflix doesn't care about box office, but I feel like this movie would have made a lot if they actually released it in theaters. Regardless, now that I've talked about how annoyed I am by Netflix shenanigans, it did receive critical acclaim from pretty much everyone, with a lot of people noting the film's darker tone and its departure from the ensemble focus storytelling of the first two films, instead focusing more on O'Connor and Craig. Although some people did view this as a negative when compared to the first film. Seemingly the consensus is that it is better than the second, though. The viewpoint that I've kind of seen around is that the ranking goes Knives Out, Wake Up Dead Man, and then Glass Onion, which I will talk about later when I talk about what I think about the film. Now, obviously, the deal with Netflix is over. They paid for 2 films. So the future of Knives Out is kind of in the air. Johnson has said that he is interested in continuing the series as long as audiences want more, and Craig is actually interested. To that point, Craig, I believe, has said that he is always up to more as long as, Johnson is interested. So there are signs that there are going to be future films. We don't know who's going to distribute it. It has been reported that Johnson and Craig are kind of formulating ideas for a 4th film. That being said, I think Johnson is going to start production soon on another film that does not have anything to do with Knives Out. So we'll see when that comes out, if it does. I sure do hope that it does. And that kind of brings us to the end of my notes and to my questions. Now, this is the first sequel that we've done, I believe. And we are actually in an interesting place because I know that you've seen the first film, Knives Out. So before we start talking about this film, I actually want to ask you your thoughts on that film, because I think it's important to not only enter our discussion of this film with that context, but also to compare and contrast. So what were your thoughts on Knives Out?
This was over 5 years ago, so I really do not remember much of anything about the first movie other than thinking it was at least a 4, maybe a 4.5. I remember loving that movie, and when it was over, thinking, this is amazing.
Wow, that's higher than I thought.
That was kind of what I had gone into it with, but I hadn't really remembered any of the details of it. At this point, I feel like I could watch it again and experience it kind of as a new movie again. It's been long enough. So that was kind of what I had thought of going into it. Other than that, I didn't really have any expectations. And of course, I once again forgot that Josh O'Connor would be in this. And as soon as I saw him, I was like, oh my God, Challengers. And then the entire movie, I spent trying to figure out what I remember Glenn Close from. And I could not think of her name. And I kept thinking, who is this? I know I've seen her in something else that we watched this year. And of course, Glenn Close was in my favorite movie that we've done, Dangerous Liaisons, which I gave a 1.
Your ultimate favorite. Now that we kind of know what you thought of the first film, I did want to ask, how this compared. Did you prefer this one or the first one? And we'll obviously get more into the differences because a lot of people have talked about how different the two films are.
I would like to say that I have not seen the second one. I don't know why I never watched it. I think I was intending to watch it, and then the whole Netflix password sharing thing started, and I was living in LA, and I was like, okay, whatever. Guess I'm never going to watch it.
Right.
I think comparing this to the first one, I don't remember a lot from the first one, but I remember liking it more than I liked this one. This is not to say I didn't enjoy this, but I did like the first one
Right.
more than this one.
Well, and I wanted to say, and I guess I kind of get into my spiel too about it. So straight off the bat, Wake Up Dead Man is my favorite Knives Out movie. That being said, I do feel like in terms of just technical skill, I do think the first film still kind of reigns supreme. I think this film, Wake Up Dead Man, is a little bit messier and a little bit sloppier. I think ultimately the reason why I preferred more is, first off, the vibes. I absolutely adore the vibes and the look of this film. You give me anything gothic and I'm there. That's one of my favorite styles. That's one of my favorite, like, gothic storytelling I absolutely adore. And it ultimately just gets me invested right away. I remember when the trailer for this movie came out, I was there already. I was already like, okay, this is going to be one of the best films of the year. So that's definitely an aspect that it made me like it more than the first film. The other thing that I think I really liked was Josh O'Connor's character and the focus of the film on it, because he does have an arc. And I feel like in some ways, Benoit Blanc is given a little bit more substance in this film too. I think because this film focused on those two characters more than the ensemble as a whole, made this film feel deeper to me. Now, I do think that obviously made this less of an ensemble film. And I think as an ensemble film, it is weaker than Knives Out. I think that aspect of the first film is honestly the strongest element of it, the ensemble. And here, because you focus so much on O'Connor and Craig, that aspect of this film really does suffer. But I feel like the depth that focusing on those two characters adds absolutely makes up for it, and is why this is my favorite film aside from the vibes. I think this film at the end of the day says a lot more than the first and the second film, especially the second film, which felt a lot more like superfluous to me, although I still enjoyed it. But this film says a lot more, and I think ultimately that's why it really stuck with me, especially because I think it's a very beautiful depiction of real faith versus fake faith. And the moment that I always remember is the phone call between Josh O'Connor's character and, the woman that he called to, find out info about when they opened the crypt last. There, that conversation where you see the actual effect of someone that actually goes into religion to like help people versus to spread, what they believe is to be right or, something else, I think is a really beautiful moment and kind of makes the whole film for me. And I know that's kind of a moment that stuck with a lot of people. So at the end of the day, that's really why this film is stronger for me, even though I do think that it is in some ways a weaker film than the first one. And the first one feels a lot more cohesive. Kind of continuing on the point of like the ensemble and the mystery, which I know were slightly more criticized when it comes to the consensus on this film. Did those elements work for you? Because I know when it comes to like the mystery, a lot of people said that they guessed it really early on. Did those elements work for you here, or did you feel like they were weaker?
Compared to the first film, I think both were weaker, but I had a very interesting reaction to the mystery element of it specifically, because I felt I didn't necessarily guess what the twist was or anything like that. I kind of just knew it wasn't Josh O'Connor because we spent way too much time with him that it couldn't have been him as the killer. I think my main problem with the mystery is there are so many things happening. Like usually when you have a mystery, you have like a few like twists and turns. I feel like this movie had like at least 10 different twists, and every one of them, I was like, okay, what's happening now? And it got like a little too convoluted at some points for me. And I did want to also bring up the ensemble cast because I do think it suffered not having as much of an ensemble cast as the first film. I love an ensemble as well.
Yeah.
But I will say, I loved the fact that we spent so much time with Josh O'Connor's character. I think that was like the heart and soul of the movie. And I think that's what, like, that aspect of it was really well done. And I'm glad that we got to see more into his world, I guess, than any of the other characters.
No, I completely agree. And I also think that, honestly, maybe if Rian Johnson hadn't casted so many like famous people, the ensemble, like, it wouldn't have suffered as much because it would feel less like an ensemble and more like, you know, you're just focused more on O'Connor. I will say it's ironic that like the mystery felt so more convoluted because in a way it felt a lot more simpler to me compared to the first two films. But honestly, that might also be just because I'm used to like twists and turns from mystery novels because they always have so much going on. And you really got to like push through to find out like what's at the center. In some ways, I guessed right away that it was Glenn Close. That being said, I guessed because it was Glenn Close, because not because of the story. I was like, oh, if they're gonna cast Glenn Close, she's probably the one that did it because she's probably a major character. But
I do want to say, I think some of the aspect of the amount of twists in here feeling kind of convoluted is because we don't spend as much time with a lot of the ensemble characters. I feel like if I knew a little bit more about them, it would feel a little bit more, I don't want to say natural, but I guess like expected. I feel like some of the twists and turns just kind of also came out of left field, and it was like, okay, we're going in a totally different direction now after something we built up, which like I like a lot of the time. And I enjoy. I just felt like there was something missing, and I wonder if it is that kind of like lack of development of some of the like further tertiary characters, I guess.
And to that point, I also feel like what they could have done was make those characters less important too, you know, and focus more on O'Connor. Although, like, obviously, I still love this film. It works for me incredibly well, but I think that doing that might have made it even stronger in some ways. But ultimately, I mean, it is what it is. I do feel like there's probably this pressure to make this film an ensemble film like the first two, because that's what the series is known for, which I think it would be nice to also go the opposite direction sometimes too, which I feel like this film did with the mood.
I think there's definitely a pressure to do the ensemble film, but I feel like there's also a pressure to make the mystery more and more complex. I'd almost like to see it scaled back a little bit, where it's just kind of more like a straightforward, like, guessing game, which, not to say that this isn't a good mystery, because I do think it is a good mystery, but I like almost a simpler premise where we're able to spend more time digging into the people in the world, because I feel like we spent a lot of time uncovering like the land, the like myth about this like world, this place, and not as much time on all of the people. You know, we spent a lot more time on the kind of like God figure of the movie, you know, the pastor or the Monsignor, who's absolutely insane and Trump-like, you know. And I feel like, well, I did like that, and I think that like really adds a whole new aspect to the film. I almost do wonder if like spending more time developing everyone else gives it a different feel. And I feel like I'd like to see that in the fourth film, not to necessarily change this film, but, you know, if they're looking for a new direction, I feel like kind of going back to basics is really good once you get like super far into like developing a world, a series or whatever.
I definitely agree with that for like a fourth film. For this film, you know, I ultimately am really happy that they focus so much on the Monsignor and all that, because I think that really makes the film for me, and it makes it such like a deep exploration of religion and faith and stuff like that. So I'm really happy with what they did here. Like, any of the things that are brought up that might sound negative are not ultimately really problems for me, because it does work really well. I feel like this is also the type of series where, you know, 3 people could each have another movie out of the 3 be their favorites and not get mad at each other, because they can all be like, oh yeah, I see why. Like, I feel like every movie is for a specific type of person, and I kind of love that.
One other thing I will say is I didn't realize how much of a like satire kind of the current time this movie is. It is very like topical, and I enjoyed that a lot. And I feel like that's something that I want even more of I wanted even more like leaning into that kind of like, this is a snapshot of the current moment. And I really loved that aspect of it. And I feel like that's something that like you don't get in a lot of other movies. And it also, importantly, does not feel dated as soon as it comes out. Like this feels like it actually could happen right now.
Because it's done in a way where Rian Johnson takes the current and moves it into something that is always present. So because of that, it can't become dated, even though it feels very specific to the moment. And honestly, you saying that makes me think that you will like the second film the most. Because in a way that feels the most, it feels the most like a satire. So I would honestly say go watch the second one, because that one might be your favorite, especially because the ensemble is very much at the center of that film. Like, you might just be thinking about Elon Musk a lot because that one kind of satirizes him and those type of like tech bros, that kind of stuff.
Another thing I didn't realize is how much of an auteur Rian Johnson is, because he has a very specific style that I do not see with anyone else currently making movies. First of all, gotta shout out the lighting, big thing. Gotta shout out the coloring, like colorizing, whatever, however that like verb is. Gotta shout out location scouting. A lot of the like design, which I don't know how much of this is sets and how much of it is real place, but like whatever it is, I think is very well done. And then the camera movement is so unique among like present day filmmakers. It is constantly moving. It is doing all of these weird like little tricks to make you feel different emotions, and yet it's not distracting, and it also doesn't feel like a mockumentary or anything like that. Like I feel like when you get those like kind of shaky camera movements and like walking shots and stuff like that, it often feels like it's almost a satire of a movie, but I feel like it's just shot so well that I was very impressed with how this movie looks.
Yeah, shout out to Steve Yedlin, because I mean, I think this film looks gorgeous. I think that's kind of one element of the film where everyone can kind of agree on that it's the best. The set design and the production. Or I said the same thing. The production and the cinematography. I hate that word.
But yeah, that was another big thing that I didn't really realize. And I was very blown away by, because obviously I watched this on Netflix, surprise, surprise, on a small screen, but I think the movie's shot in 4K, I believe, but the TV is 4K and it looked crisp, very nice.
Now, imagine watching this on a big screen.
I feel like it would be worse. This is my unpopular opinion. I feel like whenever I go to a movie, the experience is worse. And I've talked about this before. It's too fucking loud. It's freezing cold in there. And it's a projector. It's not an actual like pixels that are like making I feel like the projector just makes it like a little bit washed out. So I don't know. Maybe experiencing movies in IMAX would be better for me. But
I gotta disagree with that for sure.
That's totally fair. I think that is one of the most unpopular opinions I have. But I don't think there has been a movie that has been made better by the fact that I saw it in a theater, because it's usually not my favorite thing.
If you saw Megalopolis, it would be better, because then you could walk out.
That is a great point. There is something so nice about walking out of a movie. I've only walked out of one movie in my life, but I'm not going to tell you what it is, because we'll do it probably sometime on the podcast, and you would never guess what movie it is.
I'm excited.
But on that note, I guess I'll just give my score, because I feel like I've done enough rambling at this point.
I'm excited.
For me, this movie is a 3.5. I enjoyed it.
That's what I was thinking.
I had a good time watching it. I liked the way it looked. I thought all of that was well done. It was also mixed very well. Thank God. Like, yes, you could hear everything that was going on, and like you felt immersed in the world. Like that, they figured that out. So maybe that's one benefit to having movies on Netflix, is they're going to try to like fix the mixing a little bit more, because you don't have these massive speakers that are going to like kind of even things out differently. So, that is a plus for it. But yeah, this is a 3.5. ultimately, I liked this movie, but I wasn't blown away by it like I thought I would be. And I feel like expectations have a little bit of that too. But at the same time, even if I went in with no expectations, I feel like this is a 3.5 because I feel like I just want a little bit more from it. But that's not to say this isn't good, because I did really enjoy this. I think it's nice. It also is long, and it feels kind of long, but not necessarily in a bad way.
I get what you mean. It feels long in a way where it feels long, but necessary.
Yes, exactly.
So yeah, I completely agree with that. I guess I'll get into my last little spiel. I mean, I kind of said everything that I wanted to say, but again, this is my favorite Knives Out movie. Even though it is very close with the second one. I think ultimately, I mean, obviously, I think this film is the most gorgeous film out of all three of them. And ultimately, what makes it my favorite is the focus on O'Connor and Craig's characters and, you know, the themes and really the depth of the film compared to the first two. Now, I do agree that it is messier than the first film. I think that the first film is honestly kind of a perfect film, but this is definitely a case where even though I think the film itself is messier and not perfect, I love it more because it just speaks to me more. And now I kind of get to a weird place because I gave this film a 4.5 and I gave the first film a 5. And it makes sense because the first film is a perfect film. This film is not. But I have been honestly thinking about this film since it came out. It's just kind of been stuck on my mind to the point that I want to get Netflix just to watch this film again. And this is I would rewatch Knives Out too. Like I would watch that film on repeat too, but I want to rewatch this film so bad that I literally want to get Netflix to rewatch it. So it's on like a deeper level of wanting to rewatch it. So that kind of makes me want to give it a 5, to push it up to a 5, because it's just stuck on my mind. Like I keep on going back to it. I literally just Google it and go on the Wikipedia page and just look at stuff there because it's on my mind. So honestly, I think I'm going to give this a 5.
Wow.
Which is crazy because now my top 10 of the year has a 5 in it.
This is unexpected.
Literally, when I walked out of the theater, I was not expecting that it would go up to a 5 eventually because it was fully just like, oh yeah, this is a 4.5. But with time, it's just continued to like grow in my brain. So I'm doing it. Fuck it.
I was inspired by what you just said because I feel like there is something to be said about going to see a film, walking out of the theater and saying, this was one of the best experiences ever, because that is so cool. And that's not something that you get when you're watching a movie on your couch on Netflix. It's like, oh, that was good. I'm going to go log it in Letterboxd or whatever. Where like the act of like leaving a place and having that in your mind and driving home is like, that's underrated.
Oh yeah.
So I guess in that regard, I do like I don't want to shit talk like the movie viewing experience. And I have great theaters around here. Like it's really nice. I just feel like it's not as great as some people are saying it is. Like, I don't know. Maybe I'm just like desensitized. I didn't grow up with going to the movies all the time as well. But I wanted to ask you, you said this movie's a 4.5. When you walked out of the theater, did you think this is a 4.5 or were you in that euphoric state of like, oh my God, this is life-changing?
It was a 4.5. I walked out and I was like, wow, I loved it. You know, I knew right away that I liked it more than the first film. So I wasn't like in a euphoric stage or anything like that, but I was
definitely a 5 then, I feel like.
Yeah, okay. You know, I feel like it does have to be a 5 because not only did I like love it right away, but it's continued to stick in my brain. And it's gothic, like it's a gothic film. Like I love that. I adore that so much.
I don't want to say though that your favorite has to be rated higher than like quote unquote best, because I want to bring up a specific example, because I think Charlie XCX's best song is Party for You. No questions asked. That when that song came out, I was like, this is her best song. This is her magnum opus. This was in 2020 before it blew up on TikTok. I would like everyone to know. But I will not say that is my favorite song by her, because my favorite song by her is Official, which is a sweet like love ballad from the 2019 album that came out like half a year before How I'm Feeling Now. And there's something about that song that just has always stuck with me. And I just feel like that's my favorite. So I both, of course, rated both of them a 5 because they're both perfect. But I think my favorite song is like better than her best song and different from her best song. So that's kind of a similar thing there, where it's like the first movie's perfect, but maybe it's not my favorite.
Exactly. That's exactly where I'm at. And also, like, if I walked to the theater and I liked it the same way and it didn't stick in my brain so much, I would have kept it at a 4.5 and still called it my favorite film. Because, you know, to your point, just because I gave it a slightly lower, score because it's not as well done as the first film in some ways, doesn't mean that it can't be my favorite. So I completely agree with that. Yeah.
Yes, a very important lesson in doing whatever the hell you want, because it's your life.
Yes.
And I'm a big fan of that.
Absolutely. I mean, we ended the year on a very, very positive note. I also did want to mention that I gave the album the same score that you gave the movie.
That's very true. This is pretty interesting.
So we're kind of
I am curious about other movies that came out this year. I don't know if I would rate one higher than a 3.5 though, because I feel like generally you are much higher on the movies than I am. I feel like that's a good sign that this is probably going to be the movie I like the best out of this year. Although I am very curious about Sinners. I don't know why. Everybody was talking about it so much that I was like, I don't know.
I was actually literally going to say, I think you should watch Sinners because I feel like you would like it. You know, I think it is a good film. I think the part that definitely sticks out to me the most is the music. I think that is really where the movie shines. I think, the rest is good. And I have my problems with the story because I feel like the second half of the film is weaker than the first half. But I think ultimately the music is so strong, and you being a music guy, like I think in some way it will speak to you. I don't know. I think you will have a good experience with it, even if it's like not as high as this film. So I would say go watch it. Why not experience it?
I will say, since you kind of gave me a mini recommendation there, out of my top 10, I think you would like Noted's EP the best, Digital Notes, because it's pop and it's EDM, and you seem to like both of those genres. It's also very short.
Right.
So I kind of feel like that could be the thing that you would like the most out of my top 10. But I don't know. It could also just be a 3.5, like the same score, and you're like, oh yeah, these are both very good. So,
well, hey, in any case, I want to check it out.
Yeah, maybe we'll report back if we ever watch and listen to these things. Who knows? We got so many other things to do, like prepare for next week's episode, which we'll tell you about in a few seconds. But first, we got to say thank you for listening. If you want to support the show, you can leave a comment on Spotify. You can leave a review on Apple Music. You can rate us 5 stars wherever you listen to podcasts, because that is awesome and we will love you forever. You can check out our Instagram, which is at Uncultured Pop Culture. And David, if they want to get in contact with us, want to send us an email, where would they do that?
You can always email us at upcpod@gmail.com. Even if you want to yell at us, you are welcome to do that, because we accept all and any emails. And if you guys are trying to think of what to give to your loved ones this year, here's an idea. Why don't you give them the gift of listening to this podcast by telling them about us and spreading the word? And that would be a great little gift to us too in this Yuletide season.
Yes, very good. And of course, if you want to check our reviews and ratings of what we've talked about on the podcast and everything else that we watch and listen to, our Letterboxd and our Rate Your Musics are in the link tree, which is linked in this description and is also on our bio on Instagram. And next week, it's the new year, guys.
Exactly.
And we have to ring in that new year with something extremely special for you. So, you know what? We got a guest episode for you.
That's right.
We're going to start the year off right. So we will see you next week.
Anyways, wake up, dead man.